The Alps, an iconic mountain range, famous for Western Europe's tallest mountain peaks and for being home to what many consider Europe's most beautiful hiking trails. And one of those scenic trails is the Walker's Haute route, or translated to English, the Walker's High Trail, which is a 180-kilometer trail starting from Chamonix, a world-renowned alpine resort, and ending at another mecca of Europe's mountaineering, the Zermatt resort. The trail goes through multiple mountain passes with panoramic views to Western Alps' tallest peaks, being surrounded by ancient glaciers, and then goes through a number of green valleys and small alpine villages, from the foothills of the Mont Blanc Massif and finishing at another giant of the Alps, namely the Matterhorn Peak. And all that sounded great, but now this story is a little special. This was my very first multi-day camping trip back in the summer of 2018, both for me and for my hiking friends. So, needless to say, all that camping thing was something really new to all of us. But from the information we had seen online, and with all those countless vistas, we were excited to embark on this journey. And obviously, with the lack of experience, we had lessons to learn and challenges to go through. But more on that later. For now, let's start from the very beginning. Flying over the Geneva Lake, we could already see the prominent snow-capped peaks in the distance, and we could only guess what was coming ahead of us. We got off the plane and took the 1.5-hour bus that drove us to the heart of the mountains, to the Chamonix mountain resort. And here might be a good time to introduce our hiking group. We have Brio on his first ever trip to the mountains, Malte, a friend with whom we had done some day hikes in the past, and Chirac, who was also on his first multi-day camping trip. And there is me, Lubo, grown up in the Bulgarian mountains, and while at that time I had some experience with day hikes, I was completely new to backpacking and camping. We all continued along the valley until the Argentiere campground and stumbled along trying to set up our tents for the first time. Unfortunately, the next morning, due to personal reasons, Malte had to leave us, and so we continued along with Chirac and Brio on our first full day of hiking on this trail. With the heavy backpacks on, we were climbing out of the valley, which had panoramic views behind us to France's largest glaciers and the jagged pinnacle peaks below Mont Blanc. Then we made it to the pass and crossed the border from France to Switzerland. And even though we were in another country, French was still the official language here in this part of the Alps. We continued descending into the next valley, stumbling along due to the heavy weight that our knees and legs were carrying on our way down through the forest. And then we were also greeted by some of the locals from the area. We arrived at our destination for the day, and it was dinner time, where we were playing around with our new backpacking stoves. On this day, we could choose between hiking a lower elevation route through the forest, or to take a higher route that goes over the mountain pass alongside a glacier. Given our extensive experience, we obviously chose the higher route by the glacier. But then some rain clouds came, and it turned out we were going through a pretty sketchy section. Due to erosion and the steep slope, there had been some landslides over the trail. And later on, we even heard a few days ago, some people had to be rescued here by a helicopter. We continued with a steep rocky climb, and when we got to the top, we had a quick hailstorm, followed by rainbow views in the next valley.
I don't want to go! I'm too young to die!
Whew! We went through a few snow patches on the other side of the pass, and then some more rain came in on our way to the valley, and so I put my camera gear inside the pack to keep it dry. Putting on wet shoes is never a pleasant experience, but at least the rain was soon going to be over. We left the campground at Champex Lac, and here is also where the popular Tour du Mont Blanc trail and the Walker's Haute route split, which meant that from here the trail was supposed to be less crowded. And while Tour du Mont Blanc hikers continue hiking around Mont Blanc, we were on our way to Zermatt. We had a pretty mellow day descending down through small Swiss villages. Then we passed by Le Châble, another village right below the Verbier ski resort, and around sunset we set up camp for the night above the village. Soon after sunrise, and with the sounds of the church bells from the village below us, we were getting ready for another day on the trail. This section of the trail was going to be hiking uphill the entire day to the higher parts of the resort. Climbing up on the south slopes, the sweating was inevitable, but the trees were giving us also the chance to cool off.
This is where we camped. Can you see the lake? You see the lake? That's where we camped yesterday.
Coming out of the forest, we now had better views over the valley, so we stopped to have lunch and admire the distance we had covered the previous day. From here we were traversing along the slopes of Verbier towards the area of Cabane du Montfort. The climbing for the day was over and we found a flat spot to set up camp for the night, with views back to the Mont Blanc Massif. Around sunrise, we were again already out of our tents, slowly getting started for another day in the mountains. And being new to camping, it would often take us multiple hours every morning for the whole group to be ready to hike. We had another beautiful section ahead of us where the trail remains high in the alpine zone for the next few days before dropping again down to civilization. Traversing the mountain, my hiking friends had some problems feeling sure-footed along the slope trail, but we continued towards the pass. After the pass, we came to some snow patches and we heard about even longer section of snow towards the next pass. And also that there was an alternative option to hike down and take a bus around the mountain and reconnecting again with the trail at the Arolla ski resort. My friends, having less experience with snow, decided to take the safer option.
Good luck, guys. Let's hope you all make it.
But having grown up near mountains, I was feeling more comfortable with snow and wanted to see the conditions and then decide if I should also return or if I could continue forward. Continuing solo, the trail seemed more remote, and I also spotted a big group of alpine ibex in their natural habitat. There was indeed a longer snow section, and it seemed that it would be within my skills, so I continued ahead. But I think my hiking friends made the right decision. Being higher up in the mountains, I was surrounded by rocky terrain without much vegetation. Arriving at Col de Prafleuri, the highest point of the Haute route, I also met Pierre, a French hiker who was on a multi-month adventure hiking across the entire Alps. Descending down and being the peak of the summer, the glaciers were melting along the trail. I then met up back with Pierre, set up camp, and we had dinner together with a sunset alpine glow. We said our goodbye with Pierre, and I waited for my tent to dry out from the morning dew while enjoying breakfast with a view. But then it was time to get going for another day on the trail, staying again above treeline for the entire stage. After the short morning climb, I made it to the pass, and from here I was heading down to hike next to Lac du Dix, which has the tallest dam in Europe. I hiked around the dam while massive amounts of water were flowing into it. From here there was another climb ahead of me on the way to the Arolla ski resort. The trail here remained rocky with incredible views of the mountains ahead. There was a steep final climb to the pass, where near the top a chamois also made an appearance. With great views from the pass, the uphill part for the day was over, and now I had to descend down to the valley back towards civilization. And down at the campground, my friends had also just arrived.
Long time, boys. We made it. How are you?
Oh,
So we
good,
survived.
Now, on this day I don't have any camera footage, but we have a pretty interesting turn of events. This stage of the trail was short, mellow and less exciting, hiking along a forest trail with a road nearby it. And because I was feeling tired from the previous day, we agreed with the other guys to meet in the next village where they would hike and I would take a hitchhike right there. And so I went up to Lesage waiting for my friends. A few hours passed, it was getting late and they were still not here. So I went to the nearby restaurant, asked for the Wi-Fi and I got the following messages. Hey Lubo, I sprained my ankle very bad. The swelling is too bad. I will fly back tonight. Brio said he wants to go back home as well. I hope you finish it, man. I tried calling you but didn't connect. Oops. Getting injured in the mountains is not fun and I think my friends made the right decision. But I wanted to continue. Despite that situation, both I and my legs were feeling fresh from taking a day off from hiking and started the morning with a climb back up to the higher parts of the mountain. And while for some people hiking alone might seem scary, for me at that moment there was a sense of relief and freedom. Now I could hike at a pace that I found enjoyable and I could be totally immersed in the experience. I made it to the first pass of the day and then the trail continues down to another high altitude reservoir with views to the Moiry glacier in the distance. From here there was a mellow climb traversing the side slopes by the dam. Getting to the top, the pass presented new views to the surrounding mountains and I was again at the slopes of another mountain resort. It was time to find another flat spot to set up camp, but then I saw this little lift operator's cabin that was left open, which had enough space for my sleeping pad and great views for dinner. Leaving the little cabin in the early morning, I had a short descent and then I got on the first gondola ride down into the village of Zinal. I stopped by a store to buy some supplies and continued back on the trail where I climbed towards the next pass. On the walker's hot route, almost every day one would go from one valley to the next, going up and down, gaining and losing solid amounts of elevation.
A little bit of snow. And back on the trail.
Reaching this pass is also an invisible line transitioning from French-speaking Switzerland into German-speaking part of Switzerland in the next valley. The winter of 2018 was a relatively high snow year, so there were still some snowy sections on both sides of the pass.
Thankfully there's some tips from other people.
and even though some darker clouds rolled in, it remained dry, with scenic views of the massive peaks in the distance. I made it back down into the valley, and here, probably due to the big amounts of snow and an avalanche, there were lots of fallen trees and even a damaged house.
Pretty bad.
I wanted to camp slightly away from civilization, so I continued with the next climb, looking for a place to set up camp for the night.
A lot of cow poop around here. Okay, I think I found the spot. No cow poop, seems pretty flat. Nice view as well. Yeah.
In the typical style for this trail, the day started with a morning climb towards the next mountain pass. Reaching this pass was the final pass for the walker's Haute route, and now I was entering into the Mattertal valley, but I still had about 2.5 stages of the trail before reaching Zermatt. On the other side of the pass there was a short snowy section, then there was a mellow descent before entering into a rocky section traversing the slope. And as the trail was turning around the corner, it took me by surprise with the open views of the valley.
Whoa.
Now, being on the German side, the greetings in the mountains changed from the French bonjour to the German guten Tag. Still high above the valley, there was this little hamlet with just a few houses of the locals. Here there was also this tiny 4-person gondola, operating only one cabin at a time. So I took the chance to enjoy the views, while saving my knees and legs from the 900 meters of elevation change. Coming down to the valley through the town of St.Niklaus, and then made it up to the final village along this trail. And while Zermatt was still somewhat far away, I was considering having a big final day. As the sun was setting, I made a big dinner, and now the next part I was thinking if it might be too embarrassing to show, but here it is. Around sunset, with no people around, I stumbled upon this relatively large restroom, and because I wanted to start hiking as early as possible, this ended up being my 1-star shelter for the night. I managed to get an early start, and my plan was to cover 2 stages of the trail in one day and to try to make it all the way to Zermatt. Climbing up and out of the forest, the first sun rays were hitting the ground, and soon after that, the top of Matterhorn also made its first appearance. The trail was then becoming more rocky and was entering into a more dangerous section, which in July of 2018 was still open, but as of 2023 it is permanently closed due to the risk of rockfall. Traversing a steep slope like that, with all the loose scree, I can see why they have decided to close that part of the trail. Being out of the rockfall section, the trail for the remaining part of the day was still traversing the mountain, staying mostly at a similar elevation, without much ascending or descending. Around lunchtime I had made it to Europa Hut, which is the end of the stage, but I only stopped here for lunch, as I still wanted to cover the final section that day. Then the trail passes through the Europa Weg skywalk, which is a popular attraction for many visitors, and because of its almost half a kilometer length, as of July of 2018, that was the longest pedestrian suspension bridge in the world. Pretty high above the ground, on the narrow bridge, we were squeezing in tight with our large backpacks with the other hikers. Soon after crossing the bridge, the trail was again more quiet with no crowds, and I continued on my way to Zermatt.
Looks like we're going through a cave here.
On some of the slopes with a higher chance of rockfall, they had also installed these constructions to be able to cross safely. Continuing along in the afternoon, the massive peak of Matterhorn was now starting to appear closer and closer. And soon the Zermatt resort was just down the valley. With the early start and hiking all day, the time to the destination on the signs was decreasing and decreasing, until I finally made it to Zermatt and the endpoint of the Walker's Haute route.
It's the day after the Haute route, and I left most of my heavy things down in the campsite. For the next trip, lesson learned, pack lighter. So much better with a light backpack. Off to Zermatt, let's explore.
With this great trail now being completed, and with a few lessons learned along the way, while being in this area, I couldn't miss the chance to explore the beauty around the resort. And this concluded my very first camping trip to the mountains.